We are, of course, back on the floor today. The State of the Judiciary will be at 11, so I know we don't have a very heavy schedule in the Senate, and I suspect the House probably doesn't either. I do want to take a moment to thank the members of the House, particularly Chairman O'Neill, who has taken on the issue of going after people who are not paying their taxes. I know there's been a lot made of it this year about collecting those taxes that have not been paid, and Chairman O'Neill has really been a champion in that area, and some of the bills he has put forward that I understand will be on the floor this week deal with giving more ability to the Department of Revenue, or the Commissioner of the Department of Revenue, to go after those people who aren't paying their taxes. And at this point in time, we can't afford to leave a single dollar on the table. And Chairman O'Neill has been great in his pursuit of making sure we collect those monies. And of course, that segues right into the big issue, and that is the budget. I suspect, based upon the governor's announcement, that we will have the 2010 amended budget come out fairly soon. I don't think we're going to wait to the final days to pass that out. And work continues with the House on fiscal year 2011. I would say this year we've had more cooperation between the House and the Senate and the governor than at any time during my 8 years here, and it has resulted in us being able to look at these very difficult times and make some very difficult decisions. And we're not going to agree on everything, but I suspect the 2011 budget may not be as difficult to come to an agreement on what we're going to do as many had thought, though the decisions that we've made through this process, of course, have been very difficult. But again, I just wanted to highlight the work that has gone on between the House and the Senate and the governor. There's still a lot of work to be done on the issue of how hospitals figure into this. And as you know, the governor made his point last week, and I think that certainly has brought the hospitals to the table to begin looking at different ways of helping on this budget issue. And that will probably be one of the main topics of discussion as we move forward and try to finalize putting together the 2011 budget. I don't know of any other major issues where we have definitively determined they'll be on the floor this week. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Speaking of revenues, Senator Thomas is again trying to get seatbelts in pickup trucks. Why the resistance to that, and how much money are we losing because of that?
A few years ago, there was talk that we were losing some federal money. I think in the last discussion I had with Senator Thomas, we're not losing any more federal money. But the question is, regardless of whether there's federal money, is it the right thing to do? And I think if you're going to have a seatbelt law, it ought to apply to everybody equally. If you don't want to have a seatbelt law, then don't have a seatbelt law. But if you're going to have one, as we do in Georgia, it needs to apply to both cars and trucks alike. And I think we'll probably see that finally passed this year.
The House is going to take up the Meredith Emerson Hustler legislation. How do you see that playing in the Senate?
I suspect as quickly as the House can get it to us, we will pass it through the Senate.
Is it possible, though, to come up with the kinds of definitions, since the devil is in the constitutional details here, something that will protect a victim's family's right to privacy, and at the same time not run afoul of the First Amendment, or perhaps even a legitimate use later on by even a victim's family?
Now, you bring up a very good point, Dennis, and that is that we have to be very careful when we talk about, this is truly a First Amendment issue. But I have great faith in both the Speaker, who's spearheading this event as an esteemed lawyer, and those who are working on it in the House. And, I've spoken indirectly to some of the members about this issue, and I think they are looking at this with that concern, but making sure that we do this as quickly as possible, because my understanding is the magazine wants these photos ASAP, and there may be a very small window of time for us to address this.
But you couldn't address Hustler anyway because it would be retroactive. Even if this bill passed, it wouldn't address the Hustler situation.
Well, I'm not an attorney, but there are some attorneys I've spoken to that have a different viewpoint on that. So I don't want to elaborate on that because I'll walk into territory where I feel uncomfortable.
I think there's something about legislative intent that the court looks at.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But is it possible that something like the Hustler situation could be addressed under current law in pretty much the path that the family is following, being able to say, we don't want these released, and go to court and have it have it done.
I suppose you could take that chance, but, you know, if I'm the parent, I don't want to take a chance. I want to make sure absolutely that this doesn't happen. And I think that's what the legislature is looking at, that in these type of cases, which, thank the good Lord, they're very rare, that we don't have, you know, magazines such as Hustler or any other magazine taking advantage of it for the purposes of getting their name in the media and selling magazines, so.
Has the budget task force come up with recommendations for extending money?
That's a great question. The Budget Task Force has come up with their recommendations. I believe the Lieutenant Governor will be announcing that either later today or tomorrow. But I would not be at liberty to give you that information right now. That certainly, the Lieutenant Governor put a lot of work into that. And, some of the things I will tell you that they're talking about, we're already working on and have been discussed publicly, but I would rather let him make that announcement.
The justices give their address today, and one of your colleagues, Senator Seabaugh, has a bill that would limit the number or reduce the number of judges. Is that going to go anywhere?
Well, that has become controversial in and amongst the members of the General Assembly. As you might imagine, we received a lot of calls from our judges. One of my two counties, under the proposal by Senator Seabaugh, would have lost a position. So I don't know if that's going to move forward or not. I know that Senator Seabaugh simply looked at it as a way of saving money, determining which of those circuits were actually hearing more cases, which were hearing less, and deciding to cut back on those hearing less, which I think is a reasonable way to look at it if that's in fact what you want to do. But I'm hearing from a lot of my members that maybe that's not the path they'd like to go down.
Do you have an opinion about that yourself?
No, because I haven't studied the issue. I've just seen the news reports and talked to Senator Seabaugh briefly about it, but I have not heard any testimony on it, so I couldn't form an opinion.
Bill, Representative Hardin in the House to require random drug test of anyone receiving public assistance, including unemployment benefits. Do you favor that, or some people suggest maybe that's rubbing salt in the wound?
Well, I don't know that it's rubbing salt in the wound, and I try not to get too much into House bills until they make it to our side, because there's just be a lot of speculation on legislation that may or may not pass. I always worry about an invasion of privacy on every level, and I know this is politically popular to drug test people who are receiving benefits, and we certainly don't want to give resources to people to go purchase more drugs or anything else that's going to help destroy their lives, but we always must balance that with the right to privacy. So until I've heard a good argument on both sides, I don't know that I can form an opinion on it, but I don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction to just say, yes, let's drug test them, until we understand exactly what we're talking about.
Both the House and Senate are taking up DOT board term limitations. I've sat in on both hearings, and what I'm hearing is that there's some concern that DOT board has too much autonomy. Would you comment on that, please?
The DOT board does need to have some autonomy, but I think what we're trying to address is accountability. And the accountability issue is such that you could have a DOT board member elected, and a member of the General Assembly could actually serve 2 terms and never have an opportunity to vote on the person that represents them on the DOT board. And so that may be too much. Changing the term from 5 years to something less is probably something that I will pass this year. I think most legislators want to have greater control over their board member, because the legislature is the only place to where that DOT board member answers. They don't answer directly to the voters, and giving them a 5-year term, I think we're now recognizing that may be a little bit too long.